अस्सलाम वालेकुम, आप देख रहे हैं स्टडी विद खोला। आज की वीडियो में हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं द मिल ऑन द फ्लॉस के थीम्स और इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस जो कि बोर्ड एग्जाम से रिलेटेड हैं। आइए देखते हैं। ब्यूटीफुल स्टूडेंट्स, पहला जो थीम है द क्लेम ऑफ द पास्ट अपॉन प्रेजेंट आइडेंटिटी। किस तरह से आप इसको प्रूव करेंगे? आप देखें जो सेंट ओग है वो 100 ईयर्स पुराना है। उसके अलावा आप देखें टॉम और मैगी का जो बचपन में रिलेशनशिप था, जो पास्ट में रिलेशनशिप था, बहुत ही प्यारा था, अनोखा था, एक दूसरे की जान थे। लेकिन प्रेजेंट में इन दोनों ने आपस में दुश्मनी इख्तियार कर ली है। इन्होंने क्या किया? पास्ट को फरामोश कर दिया। इसके अलावा अगर आप देखें मैगी का और फिलिप का रिलेशनशिप, इनके फादर्स आपस में दुश्मन हैं, बट प्रेजेंट में इन लोगों ने आपस में लव स्टोरी को कंटिन्यू कर रखा है। तो आप इसको देखें कि पास्ट अपॉन प्रेजेंट पर किस तरह से हावी हो गया है, किस तरह से प्रेजेंट जो है अब ये लोग लेकर चल रहे हैं, पास्ट को बिल्कुल भुला बैठे हैं। सेकंड थीम अगर हम देखें द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ सिंपैथी। सिंपैथी जो है इसमें बहुत ही शॉर्ट एज है। मैगी के लिए टॉम के दिल में सिंपैथी नहीं है, उसको बिल्कुल भी वो बर्दाश्त नहीं कर पा रहा उसका रिलेशनशिप फिलिप के साथ। इसके अलावा आप बहुत से कैरेक्टर देख सकते हैं। जो विकम थे, मिस्टर विकम, उन्होंने भी उनके फादर जो हैं टॉम के टुलिवर के लिए बिल्कुल भी उनके दिल में सिंपैथी नहीं थी। इसके अलावा ल्यूसी के लिए भी सिंपैथी नहीं रखी। किसने नहीं रखी थी? स्टीफन ने। ये लोग सिंपैथी से आ रही हैं। इसमें काफ़ी ज़्यादा प्राइड भी दिखाया गया है और एक दूसरे के लिए हमदर्दी इधर बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। अब देखते हैं हम नेक्स्ट जो है अपना थीम। साथियों, प्यारे व्यूअर्स, अगर देखें इसमें जो नेक्स्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट कैरेक्टर है प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज वर्सेस बुकिश नॉलेज। अब जो टॉम है उनके हालात बहुत ही ख़राब हो गए, लेकिन टॉम को पढ़ाई में बिल्कुल दिलचस्पी नहीं थी। यहाँ पे प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज बहुत ज़्यादा उसके काम आया। बुकिश नॉलेज उसके पास तो था ही नहीं, लेकिन अपनी प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज के ज़रिए अपने फ्रेंड बॉब की मदद से, जो कि एक सेल्समैन था, उसने अपने वालिदैन की, अपनी बहन की, अपनी मदर की ज़िंदगी दोबारा से तब्दील कर दी। जो उनको ड्रॉबैक्स हुए, जो वो बैकरप्ट हुए, तो प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज की वजह से वो दोबारा उठ खड़े हुए। तो ये भी बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट थीम है। बहुत ही प्यारा थीम द इफेक्ट ऑफ सोसाइटी अपॉन द इंडिविजुअल। किस तरह से सोसाइटी ने इंडिविजुअल के कैरेक्टर पर असरअंदाज हुई। आप देखें कि टॉम और मैगी में जहाँ बहुत ही मोहब्बत थी, अब बड़े होकर प्रेजेंट में टॉम जो है अपनी बहन को अंडरस्टैंड नहीं कर पा रहा। ये लोग बहुत ही मुश्किल माली हालात से गुजर रहे हैं, जिसकी वजह से वो फिलिप के साथ अटैच हो गई। बट टॉम ने इसके इमोशंस को निगलेक्ट किया और इंस्टेड ऑफ उसको वो समझ सकता, उसको बाउंड कर दिया और घर से नहीं निकल सकती, परमिशन नहीं दी, जिसकी वजह से नतीजा क्या निकला कि मैगी जो है गलत रास्ते पर निकल पड़ी। मैगी ने स्टीफन के साथ भाग गई, जिसकी वजह से सोसाइटी की वजह से इन्हें बहुत सी ह्यूमिलेशन का सामना करना पड़ा। इसके अलावा अगर आप देखें जब टॉम पर बुरे हालात आए, टुलिवर ख़ानदान पर बुरे हालात आए, ये लोग बहुत ही अमीर थे, तो किसी ने भी इनकी मदद नहीं की। टॉम ने अपनी प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज इस्तेमाल करते हुए आगे बढ़ा और अपने पाँव पे खड़ा हुआ। आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरह साइकोलॉजिकली ये लोग डिस्टर्ब थे। यही ख़ास बात है जॉर्ज इलियट की। जैसे कि हमने पढ़ा, ये एक फिक्शनल स्टोरी है और वो इतना खूबसूरत लिखती थी, साइकोलॉजिकल इंसाइट भर देती थी अपने कैरेक्टर्स में कि लोग इन कैरेक्टर से मोहब्बत करने लग जाते थे। और इसके अलावा जो रूरल लाइफ पर ये बहुत ही बेहतरीन लगती थी। ये जो सारे थीम हैं इसकी एक ग्रेट एग्जाम्पल है उनके काम की, कि किस तरह से उनको सराहा जाता था माशरे में, सोसाइटी में। स्टूडेंट्स, आइए देखते हैं कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस रिलेटेड टू मिल ऑन द फ्लॉस जो भी पास्ट पेपर्स में आए हैं और जो आपके लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है। काइंडली इनको नोट डाउन कर लें और अपने एग्ज़ाम्स के लिए इनकी तैयारी कर लें ताकि आप भी अच्छे मार्क्स अचीव कर सकें। अस्सलाम वालेकुम मेरे प्यारे स्टूडेंट्स, आज जो है हम इम्पॉर्टेंट शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस डिस्कस करेंगे रिलेटेड टू मिल ऑन द फ्लॉस। This is written by George Eliot, as you know. The first question is, write 4 novels of George Eliot. What are these novels' names? George Eliot was an English novelist, poet, journalist, translator, and one of the leading writers of the Victorian era. She wrote 7 novels, but here we discuss only 4 novels of George Eliot. Her major works included Adam Bed, 1859, The Mill on the Floss, 1860, Silas Marner, 1861, Middlemarch, 1871 to 72. Then, these are the famous novels of George Eliot. She was a lady, but her name was a but her name her name was a boy name because she wrote on romanticism. Question number 2, as you are seeing, what does the floss symbolizes? On the symbolic level, the floss is related most often to Maggie and the river, with its depth and potential to flood. Symbolizes Maggie's deeply running and unpredictable emotions. The river's path, non extant on maps, is also used to symbolizes the unforeseeable path of Maggie's destiny. The mill is a unit of currency used in several countries or in several centuries. Thousands of base unit. River floss is the symbol of life and death, whereas the mill symbolizes economic stability. The river represents both life and death for the Tullivers. The mill, its success on or failures, represents the livelihood for the Tullivers family. Question number 3. What does imagery serve in the novel? The answer is especially in the early book of the Mill on the Floss, Tom and especially Maggie are associated with animal imagery. The imagery is usually of Fasim type animals, ponies, dogs, duck, and usually points to the character's capacity for affection or non adherence to social convention. Maggie and plus these are the and music have a very close imagery, is a literary device used in novel. Music have a very closer imagery. Hawaii is a literary device used in novel through language imagery. Language imagery does not only paint a picture but aims to portray the next sensational and emotional experiences within text. Question number 4. What is the symbolic importance of music? Answer. On the symbolic level, the floss is related most often to Maggie, and the river, with its depth and potential to flood, symbolizes Maggie's deeply running and unpredictable emotions. The river's path, non-existential non-existent on maps, is only used to symbolizes the unforeseeable path of Maggie's destiny. The mill on the floss. Unconscious imagery is awakened by music is ways which both affirm and disturb the individual's sense of self. Philip's singing intensifies Maggie's sense of integration with the past. The question number 5 is, The Mill on the Floss is not a religious novel, but it highly concerned with a morality that should function among all people and should aspire to compassionate with others through sympathy. The main theme of Mill on the Floss is memory and childhood, knowledge and ignorance, women's roles and social pressures, loss of Loss of innocence is a major theme in The Mill on the Floss. From the beginning of the novel, that narrates makes it clear that there is a clear novel, The Mill on the Floss, themes love, family choices, memory, and the past, home, suffering, compassion, and forgiveness. Question number 6. Interpret the happiest movement of The Mill on the Floss. Explanation of the famous quotes in The Mill on the Floss, including all important the happiest woman, like happiest nations have no history. The Mill on the Floss, 1860, is a novel by George Eliot about siblings and the familial divided caused by differing perspective. The passage highlights Maggie's unfitness for the time and world she is born into. It is not just her father's troubles and tragedies. It points that happiness fades away once passed on history. The happiest nations enjoy themselves with their present and their hardships. Question number 7. Interpret I desire no outuse. Damon wrote, I desire no futures that will break the ties of the past. I desire no future that will break the ties of the past. The future rarely asks people about their desires. In this line, this is the line from the text. In this line, Maggie sums up her views on the role of sister. I desire no future that will break the ties of the past, but the tie to my brother is one of the strongest. I can do nothing willingly that will divide me. This illustrates the unity that Tom and Maggie find in hardship again and again. It is when tragedy strikes that they are best. We could never have left the earth so well if we had. I desire no future that will break the ties of the past. Question number 8. Who is Maggie? Answer. Maggie is a talented and intelligent girl growing up at Dorlocott Mill, and she is the protagonist. She is the protagonist of the novel of this story. The novel follows Maggie when she grows up from a hot-headed and unconventional young lady. She grows up between sisters' social customs and yields them. Maggie Tulliver is the protagonist of The Mill on the Floss. When the novel begins, Maggie is a clever and impetuous child. Eliot presents Maggie as major, imaginative, and interesting than the rest of her family, and she is very sympathetically in the need of love because Tom rejected her, and basically her family rejected her because of her movements. Because of her what movements? Emotional movements. Question number 9. What sort of commitment does Maggie feel The answer was when she meets Stephen Guest, Lucy Dean, her cousin. Handsome Soiter, and enters into the society world of St. Aug where they live. Maggie feels this want for Stephen when Stephen kisses her arm in the conservatory. Maggie is not angry. Stephen loves Maggie against his will and his judgment. These can be no doubt of the reality of his love, but he has not the satisfying nature. He offers his arm, and the firm's support is strongly winning Maggie the love of Stephen. To Maggie, Philip first meets Maggie when he is At school with Tom, Stephen Guest falls in love with Lucidian. So, with all the sexual overtones here, you would think Stephen would be wildly interestingly. So, this is the main case. Next question. Question number 10. What is the significance of Maggie's? In The Mill on the Floss, she illustrates the noticeable relationship between Maggie's Tulliver and his brother Tom, because she had the same relationship in the childhood with her sticker brother, stick brother now, the Tom. Now, Esau and Maggie has biographical resemblance with George Eliot. See Maggie's compassion and the reluctance to hurt others of the case of Maggie's character and his companionship also help to explain Maggie's seeing Maggie's eyes are frequently described what her eyes described as somehow hypothetic. Maggie's dark there symbolizes Maggie's ears are the symbolism rebelliousness against the censored of dress and other things. She looks very normal, but her eyes and skin says so much. Question number 11. What is significance Maggie's encounter with gypsies? Gypsies is the name of place. She thought of her father as he ran along, but she reconciled herself to the idea of fasting with him by determining that she would secretly send him. In running away to the gypsies, Maggie is motivated mainly by desire for admiration, especially admiration of her cleverness. Maggie has not gone home but has decided to run away to the gypsies. She has often been told she is like a gypsy and she respect her. And she respect her for her knowledge. She meets two tramps in the lane and one of them begs a sixpence from her. Question number 12. The narrator describes St. Aug as an island town which carries the traces of its long growth and history like a millennial tree. Maggie's is swept away in one boat into the darkness. She floats out over the flooded fields, and in the growing twilight she sees St. Aug's. The town of St. Aug's, which shows its age, would be in a state to justify the production of I have not your ready money to play with Tullivers. Question number 13. What step Tom family takes? Welcome home Tom is convinced has been planning to ruin their future, their father. Next, Tom takes Maggie's to the woods where he confronts Philip, accusing him of taking advantage of Maggie. They both secretly meeting for almost 1 year. Ignorance and loneliness. Tom's character is capable of love and kindness. He buys a puppy for Lucidian and he often ends up reconciling with Maggie. Tom is not a popular individual. He is proud kind of person, judgmental person, and he is kind of arrogant and a bit of a stick in the mud. Tulliver decided to pay for Tom to have additional education rather than have him take over the mill. He decided to work hard and take his father's mill. Question number 14. What purpose Tom with his dying father? What is their main promise? The answer is on his deathbed, Mr. Tulliver makes Tom promise to buy back the mill and take care of his sister on his deathbed. Mr. Tulliver's dying request is that Tom should try and get the old mill back. Wickham and fell down. This time he became critically ill and died. Before his death, he promises of his son to take the mill of his friend and take care of her sister because he earned money and take a mill in this money, but last he was in a very bad condition because his friend snatched his mill. Here the friend is Wickham. Question number 15. Why does Tom break off his friend Bob Jackson? Question answer is because Bob is better at trapping rabbits than Tom. Because Bob is not intelligent. Bob Jackson was one of Tom's childhood friends. However, their friendship ended when he and Tom had a fight over a coin, and Tom was enraged that Bob tried to cheat. As adults, however, Bob proves a true friend to Tom and Maggie, whom he adores. Tom rejected his friendship when they were children over over an accident of cheating. Bob returns to the Tullivers' lives later in the novel. Bob remains ready to often special heap, but Tom, like the clegg, fins off an imputation of being in receipt of fever. Question number 16. How do Tom and Maggie die? What are the reasons of their death? Maggie rescues Tom, who is trapped in the house, and they row down river towards Lucy before they can reach Lucy's house. The boat is capsized by depths in the river, and Maggie and Tom drown in each other's arms. The two main characters, Tom and Maggie, down during a flood, which is about on depressing. As you can get, Maggie resolves to herself, I will bear it until death. But how long it will be before death comes? After a period of intense emotional suffering for Maggie, the local river floods. Question number 17. What kind of the education they want? Mr. Tulliver wants his son Tom to have a good education. Education for several reasons. What are the reasons? First, he wants to ensure a financially secure future for Tom. Tulliver wants his son Tom to go to a school where he can learn a skill set more appropriate for a middle class career and seeks the advice of his middle class friend Mr. Raleigh. Mr. Raleigh realizes the capability of education to resize one's social credit and recommends the clergyman. Mr. Tulliver states his intention of sending Tom to a different school where he can learn to be a sort of engineer or a survivor. So, this is the basic reason Tulliver wants. Question number 18 is in front of you. What was the cause of Mr. Tulliver's death? Mr. Tulliver's death is directly to the emotional upheaval of his finances and his inability to cope what he cannot understand. Tulliver attacks Wickham and her and horse whips him. His horse fell down him. His health fails him one more, and Mr. Tulliver dies after making his son promise to buy back the mill and take care of his sister. Mr. Tulliver's tragedy ended up with his death at the end of book 5th. Maggie's tragedy takes over the novel begins with Book 6. In death, Mr. Tulliver, with his admonitions to bring down the Wickham family, winging. Question number 18. Who is Elizabeth Tulliver? What is she and what is the character? Maggie Tulliver, mother, Mr. Tulliver, is a dull-witted, stout, blonde woman, formerly a Miss Dodson. Miss Elizabeth, Mrs. Tulliver, is a simple woman. She cannot handle the emotional humiliation. She is very simple. Maggie Tulliver, Tom Tulliver, Elizabeth Tulliver, Jessamy Tulliver, Lucy Dean, Philly Wickham, Lawyer Wickham, Stephen Guest. Tulliver is the victim of both his own character and the circumstances of his life. So, now you can guess other questions as you see on this copy. Who is Jesse Tulliver? Maggie Tulliver's father, Mr. Tulliver, works the mill on the Floss, which is on land his family has built for generations. Mr. Jessamy Tulliver is a headstrong and impetuous man with a quick temper. He has a generous nature and loves his children. Their father, Jessamy Tulliver. The main character of the novel is Maggie Tulliver, an intelligent and passionate child and young woman. Jessamy Tulliver, Maggie's father's hard worker, very supportive of Maggie, passes away. Jessamy Tulliver owns Dorlocate Mill on the Floss, and the childish go to and the children go to their. Question number 21. फिलिप के बारे में बताएं. Philip is a wealthy lawyer who becomes the enemy of Mr. Tulliver and by extension Tom Tulliver. Philip has a physical deformity, a hunchback, which makes him feel depressed and insecure. However, he is also very intelligent, sensitive, and gifted. Philip himself is well said, cultured, and an accomplished sketch. Philip's deformity, a hunched back he has had since birth, has made him somewhat melancholy. The person who speaks with him, so this is, and bitter like Maggie. He suffers from lack of love. Here is the discussion of Mr. Philip Wickham of life. He is so much depressed with his life. Question number 22. Who is Bob Jackson? Bob Jackson was one of Tom's childhood friend. However, their friendship ended when he and Tom had a fight over a coin, and Tom was angered that Bob tried to cheat an adult. However, Bob proves a true friend to who? Tom and Maggie, whom he adores. He is always rumbling, sometimes hilariously, sometimes sweetly. He is the mastermind behind one of the funniest sequences in the book. Bob's a pack man, a salesman who buys goods at one place and sells them at another. The question number 23. Why does Lucy forgive? She genuinely cares about other people and she has an amazing capacity to forgive others. Lucy actually forgives Maggie after Maggie basically runs off with Lucy's boyfriend. She takes the news of Stephen and Maggie's elopement badly, falling ill for several weeks. She is in most ways a contrast to Maggie. A child, she is all the things Maggie is not. She is quite well behaved, kind of a well behaved, meeting with all people, and she is by nature neat and not over intelligent. In particular, Maggie's cousin Lucy Dean seems to represent conventional femininity. She is really beautiful. She is really beautiful and a very good looking girl. Next, question number 24. Personality of Moss. Moss is a kind and an honest man, and he is willing to try to pay his debts to Mr. He's trying to repay his debts to Mr. Tulliver, even thought it will be great hardship for his family. Moss is the head person officer of Esra's Zerthakla. He is the first seen in the episode Escape when he chases Arrow deep into the jungle and only for arrows to slip away makes a dent in Moss' prize. He played Bessie and leave his prison empty. Question number 25. Mr. George character. The explanation of Mr. Glegg character. Mr. Glegg is Mr. Tulliver's eldest sister. Mr. Tulliver's elder sister and Tom and Maggie's most hated aunt. They don't like her. She takes away seriously her rights and responsibility as the oldest of the Dodson sisters and tend to treat her family dictatorially, making loud judgments about Mr. and Mr. Glegg. A self-made businessman, now retired and concerned mainly with his garden and his reflection on the ways of women. Mistress Paulette, the second Dodson sister, a hypochronically accused to a survey gentleman former. Question number 16. Stephen Guest personality. And who is Stephen Guest? By description, he is a handsome, witty, and a powerful personality. However, he appears as a bit of fop, a fine young gentleman. In the end, Stephen is an odd mix of bland romantic interest and dangerous seduce. He represents both an imaginative fantasy world. Stephen is handsome, charming, and wealthy, the son and heir to the Guest and Co. shipping. He is the son of sincere partner of Guest and Co. However, Stephen appears as a bit of a fine young gentleman with B appears in the novel. He is 25, handsome, rich, clever, and conceited. Question number 21. George Eliot was a novelist. What type of writer she is? George Eliot was an English Victorian novelist known for the psychological depth of her characters and her descriptions of English rural life. Her major works included Adam Bed, The Mill on the Floss, Middlemarch, Daniel Deronda. Eliot was an English novelist, poet, journalist, translator, and of the leading writer of the Victorian era. She is the writer of Victorian era. She wrote 7 novels. George Eliot's work is written in a way that comes across an extremely well educated and elucidate. Her works is full of cluster, historical. She is writing cultural based, historical based, literary based, and scientific references that make it clear that the writer is very intelligent. Question number 28. The Mill on the Floss is described as Eliot's most autobiographical novel because it portrays of a complex relationship between a brother and sister. It is the story of a young woman's struggle for growth and independence against the resistance and restraints of small country life. dominancing family, and unsuitable suitors. Suitors means their lovers or their partners. The Mill on the Floss is the spiritual autobiography of Mary Ann Evan and the history of Maggie Tulliver and his family. Question number 29. A novel. Write the significance of Mill on the Floss. The question number 18 answer is a novel 1860 by George Eliot. It is mainly about the relationship between a brother and sister, Tom and Maggie Tulliver, who live in a mill, a building where grain is grounded into flour. On the river on the Floss, it described their childhood and a dispute that causes to separate the mill also indicates the business and industry are going to play a role in this kind of book, The Mill on the Floss. Next, that business and industry are going to play a role in this book. The Mill on the Floss carries significance because in this novel, mill symbolizes the economic stability, economic security, survival, and prosperity. So, the importance of Mill on the Floss we discussed. Next question is question number 30. Sketch of Maggie's Tulliver. As a child, Maggie is highly intelligent but likely to be forgetful. She acts rashly without considering consequences. It means she never understands. She always in hurry. In The Mill on the Floss, she illustrates the noticeable relationship between Maggie's Tulliver and his brother. Maggie's Tulliver is the protagonist of The Mill on the Floss, where the novel begins. Maggie is clever and impetuous child. She is very in hurry. She is very emotional. Maggie is a talented and intellectual girl growing up at Dorlcote Mill, and she is the protagonist. The novel follows Maggie when she grows up. From a hot-headed and smallest town. She is very smart child and she is outstanding and unconventional young lady. The next question is 31 question. So, basically, what is the ending of this book? The question is, what is the ending of the books? What is the main end of this book? The ending of this book is pretty infamous, which means it's famous in a bad way. The two main characters, Tom and Maggie, drowned using a flood, which is about as depressing as you can get. Firstly, the end can be justified at an allegorical level. The novel is in fact written in the retrospect. The ending of this novel proves her wrong. As the sun rises, brother and sister embraces. What they did, the brother and sister embraces. Novel is the most controversial issue of the novel. Question number 32. So, in this question, Tom says his aunts would not let the things be solved. But Mr. Tulliver says the title states the case Mr. Tulliver possessions. The question is, what are the possessions of Mr. Tulliver? Have become her goods. Question number 33. This is the last question. Write the summary.